In 120 days, the property's purchased, the building is built, the furniture is all in place, and they walk in and set up shop. 120. They couldn't believe it. They just couldn't believe it. And so they say, okay, how soon now? Palo Alto, University Avenue, Palo Alto. Same thing. We go down, find a really good piece of property. This was a tough one. I could tell the part of why it was tough to buy, but I don't really want to talk about it. But we found out the owner was a crazy, and she couldn't make a deed. And we had to go to court to get her to get a conservator, and then go back and start over. And that took us about 30 days after we were around a great big table to close the deal, and everybody had their lawyers and everything there. And the title guy that was in, somebody came in and said, you need to come and answer the telephone. He said, it's a big deal. I don't answer the telephone. Look at all these people that are here, lawyers and that. So he said, and they said, hey, you're going to want to come because the owner of this property has been declared insane and cannot sign this deed. So I had to wait till we could get a conservator, which was her niece, to go to court and become her conservator, come back and sign it all up and buy the property. We would go to the bank. We had 3 lenders. We had a bank, we had Great Western Savings and Loan, and we had Pacific Mutual Life Insurance Company. That's the one where the whale comes up out of. We had 3. We had Dean Witter or Payne Weber or even Bank of America on the lease, so we had no problem that they were going to be good for it because their balance sheets and their financials were so strong. And so these 3 all wanted that lease because that was a good part of business if they could get, so if we failed, it would. So we would bid the lease. They all wanted them. We'd take the lowest, and then we'd price above the lease amount, 25% more than our debt service. Said, yeah, 25% right off the bat. And then 15 years we owned the property, and the property were the best corners up and down California and wherever we went, downtown Boston, wherever we went, because that's what they wanted. And so we got left with those properties which were valuable. So that was the best deal we ever did. Sherrill Cornwall was our architect, okay? And Sherrill Cornwall was doing ward houses for the LDS Church all over the country. So he had a license in all the states. Well, that was unbelievable. Okay, what was number 2? Our builder also built LDS buildings all over the United States. So he had construction licenses in Texas and every state, because he built buildings for the LDS Church. So that was so those guys did all of our architecture, all of our building. They knew just what we wanted, how we wanted it done. They were very good at their business, and because of that's why we could do it so fast. In other words, we have to go to Washington, get an architect that's licensed in Washington, and have him draw the plans. How long do you think that might take? A long time. Then we have to get a builder that's licensed up in Washington, probably from Washington, and we're in the stream of building. Anyway, these 2 guys, just worked right with us. And
so you surrounded yourself with the right people, too.
They were great. Now, one of the other things why they were is because the church hired him, but another guy that hired him is a guy by the name of Bob Rice. And it used to be the Rice Stadium, at the University of Utah, football.
Yeah, Rice.
And then it became the Rice Eccles because they wanted to expand it. They wanted some of Eccles' money. But Bob Rice was building spas around the country. And that's back when the spas were pretty elaborate. So you had a polar pool and you had a, thing where you could get healthy drinks and all. And you paid monthly. And he'd sell them to the bank and get part of it back. And he used these same two guys because he was needing somebody that could do work in all these states. So, I mean, it was just...
Creative intellect.
If we hadn't had those guys, there are 100 reasons we could have been defeated on this.
Okay.
HS Clark Fine Art is a partnership that I have that sells and creates art and sells and pays the bills. Well, John Kobabe and his wife, Jessica, helped me. Nicholas Clark, who's the son of Scott Clark, my son, so he's my grandson, helps me. So John and Nicholas are my grandsons. And then we have some outside help. We decided, I went to Sun Valley every year because the Utah Bankers Association had their convention in Sun Valley. And I was a director at the Davis County Bank. That's before we bought it. And so I obviously was part of going to Sun Valley with Davis County Bank. And we just took our family with us because it was a great outing and they loved it. And then we started going on other vacations. We have grandkids.
Right. Now great grandkids.
And they go. And then we have grandkids' husbands, and they go. And then they get babies, and they're great-grandkids, and then they go.
And where do they go?
They go on the vacation all together, so they get to know each other, and they get some experience about what happens in this world. Well, Betty and I talked about it. It was kind of mutual. But in addition to that, the idea came to us. A good idea in life, and I don't know who wrote this in the magazine or the book or whoever, is if you want your family to stay together, which you do, most important thing in the world, most important thing in your life are your kids and grandkids, your posterity, or wherever they come from and whatever age they are. Some of ours have been adopted, just as important to us as our own children, every bit as important. Then take your family on to places that are just kind of above a normal vacation, just kind of a really nice, like take them on a ship and go in different parts of the world. So they have an opportunity to go say, well, what's this world all about? Or we go to Disney World, which we're going to do this year. Gave the kids a real opportunity to see a little more than Utah. A lot of kids that grow up in Utah have never been outside of Utah. They all want to go. And then we want it that way forever. We mean Betty and I. So this next Christmas, we're going back to Hawaii. We wanted to go on the Disney ship, but we've got some real young ones that can't. And they're going. So we're going to the Disney World thing in Oahu. It's important that the vacation is not something to forget. It's important that the vacation is something that'll enhance memories, enhance brain, enhance experiences, and valuable.
Keep the family.
Keep the family together, whoever they are, and every new member. And so you know every member of our family because you've been on these vacations with us, and they're all there. In Europe, we've been on a river trip, which spans more than Europe. It starts in Berlin and goes in Austria and goes in and even goes into Poland and so when you're on this river trip, you're not going to one country. Other trips to Europe This will be our second one to Hawaii. Many trips to Sun Valley.
You love Sun Valley, right?
Mm-hmm. We've not been to South America. We've been to Mexico. We've been to Canada. And we've been to quite a few countries. Been to England. So it's those countries. Your family is the most important thing, in my opinion, that you have. Absolutely the most important thing. So if you don't have togetherness in your family, you're really lacking in the most important thing for you to have. Our family means more to us than any single thing. And that's Betty and myself both. And that's from the oldest in our family, would be Lissa, to the youngest, who would be less than a year old when we go this year. And they'll continue to grow up with that, and then there'll be 1 and 2 and 3. And so as long as we're living, they'll grow up with that.
Lissa.
Beautiful.
Jane.
Beautiful.
Scott.
Great guy.
Betty.
Very important.
Betty.
Betty is my life. Betty produced these children. I wouldn't have these children without Betty.
What does Betty mean?
What does she mean to me? Everything. Betty is top of the top. Betty's my wife, my life. And I honestly believe, that Betty and I are going to be together again after death, and along with the children. And I sincerely believe that. I don't think this is the end. And Betty just couldn't. And so one thing I think is very important in a marriage, and Betty do this every night, kiss each other every night before we go to bed. I think that's extremely important. And we tell each other how much we love each other every single night before we go to bed. That's not the only time, but that's every time.
So,
Yeah, Betty is just fabulous. I hope that everyone will be successful. Let me try to identify successful. I don't mean money. I don't mean a lot of things. What I mean by successful is they're able to have a comfortable image of themselves, and they will be successful, but it can be in so many different ways. And money has nothing to do with it. It can be any number of things. I'm hoping they'll get an advanced education, because I think education is a very important part of this life. I'll hope they'll have marriages that are really successful and happy, and that they build a family together based on happiness and good training of the children and good schooling and all those things that matter a lot more than money. Takes money to do some of those things, but there are ways. Well, I love every one of you. I want to love every one of you forever. I have a spiritual hope that every one of us will be together again and continue on with this wonderful family relationship, from Betty to my children, to my grandchildren, to my great-grandchildren, and whatever posterity is yet to come.